pretty much everyone that John Wick muzzled was a bad guy. So,
What up, everybody? This your homeboy Heavy. Yo, check this out. If you like what the Pop Culture 223 podcast is dropping as far as content, I need you to hit that like button, that subscribe button, and that notification button so I can run these numbers up and catch that YouTube algorithm. So let's get into the show and see what's popping. Yo, what up, though, everybody? This is another episode of the Pop Culture 223 podcast. We back in the studio. We've been gone for a while, a little minute. We've been doing some new setups, trying to get some new stuff going on.
yes, sir.
But today we got, I'm gonna say another local celebrity. He's a neighborhood
man, the myth, the legend.
man, the myth, the legend, neighborhood hero. You know, all that good stuff. Like
I told him off camera, it's good to finally meet you, man. I've heard so much about you. It's like you said, the man, the myth, the legend.
Man,
but it's always good, though.
when I tell people, you know, my journey, I always start with my discipline came from MDFI. And then, I got into performance with DMI performing with the homie Jeff. But my discipline, my skill set, my mindset all came from the teachings of the myth, the legend himself. But I'm going to let him introduce himself. So, hey, go ahead. I read your bio. It seemed like Barry didn't want to read the bio because it was long. And he was looking at it. He was probably saying, like, shit, this is too long.
I mean, we can, but we kind of want him to do it.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I did, just for the record, you did say a brief bio, and I think I violated that a little bit.
I know it was coming when I seen the paragraphs.
No, guys, thank you so much for having me on. My name is Eric Utrecht. Everybody calls me Trek. I am the former owner of MDFI, and I say that with all sorts of love for the guys that just took over the company. I was with MDFI for 15 years, started with MDFI in 2010, started running the company in 2011, bought the company in 2013, and I just wrapped up my final year of live fire at the end of 2024. I am a Michigan native. I'm a Kalamazooan, graduated from Loyal Oryx High School in 1997, dropped out of Ferris State University a year and a half later. I went to school for graphic design, and this is what I tell. In fact, KJ, I know you've heard this before. This is pretty funny. So in high school, if you remember those tests, all those state tests that we had to take, they always used to say race optional. And as a high schooler, you don't understand what they're doing. So as a joke with the last name of Utrecht, which my family is 100% German, I put Pacific Islander for every single checkbox. Now, I did it as a joke, and then I got out of high school, graduated with a C minus average because I doodled all through high school, and I got into Ferris State's graphic design program. My dad actually designed the Easy Bake Oven.
Really? Oh, that's what's up.
Right. So, first of all, if it burned your house down, he designed it. He didn't build it. That's a very, very important
Disclaimer there.
Disclaimer.
Right, designs
Allegedly.
and builds are two different things.
Right. So he worked for Kenner Toys. He is a very talented artist. He lives down in Las Cruces, New Mexico right now. So I got into Ferris State's graphic design program with no discipline whatsoever. And I started getting letters from the Pacific Islander Awareness Association. And I didn't understand it. And then I realized I got into college under affirmative action. They literally gave me a spot with a horrible GPA because I had put that I was a Pacific Islander on all of my state mandated tests.
Oh, that's hilarious.
You checked the box.
I did. I took a spot
That's
from a white
hilarious.
kid, right? So I ended up dropping out. I was not good.
That boy good.
I was not good whatsoever. I could draw. I could take photos.
Wait.
Could do math. Oh yeah.
Wait, time out.
Oh,
time
yeah.
out, man. Time out. And I hate to interrupt the flow of this the way this is going, but I have to say this. It's almost like we were kindred spirits some kind of way. And I'm going to tell you why, because as you talk about the GPA, I'm like, okay, check mark, that was me.
Yep.
And when you talk about, you being full German, I'm like, okay, I'm not full, but I'm part. I was about to jump in, sprechen Sie Deutsch?
jawohl.
I won't say I really don't, but
That's about as far as I go.
But I'm like, okay, so we got that in common. And then when you said Pacific Islander, I'm like, damn, one of my best friends is Pacific Islander. And I'm like, wait a minute, where are we going down with this? And it's funny because his daughter, I mean, again, her dad is part Pacific Islander,
Sure.
but his daughter kind of got in Michigan State on the same kind of tip. It was crazy. It's a whole nother.
It's amazing
I won't even tell you the way she got in on air because I want to blow up her spot. But it was more than Pacific Islander. But I was just like, wow, okay, wait a minute. We got a whole lot in common here. That's what's up.
It's such a funny story because as a high schooler, you don't understand the way the system works. And then I look back on it now and laugh. But the reality was it set me on a path. That failure, and it was a failure. I dropped out, had to call my parents and say, it's just not for me. Luckily, I left kind of, head between my shoulder blades going, what am I going to do? And I had a bunch of friends and mentors that were ex-military, ex-law enforcement. And they said, hey, dum-dum, you don't have discipline. You skip all this college, even though you're paying for it.
Right.
Why don't you join the military? And they're going to give you discipline. And I always joke, I didn't understand what that meant till I got to basic training.
Right.
And then they force-fed me all the discipline that I needed. And so to this day, I hold the fact that I've been able to accomplish so much because of that initial failure, the failures that I had in the military training, but the successes that I had in the military, specifically because they took a lump of bubble gum and they force-fed me into a disciplined world where now if I leave my watch at home and I can't be on time, it drives me absolutely nuts. And so I got out of the military after just shy of 10 years. I was a military law enforcement officer, and where this path intersects with my good friends that have me on the podcast is not only was I a military law enforcement officer, but I had the opportunity to go through the NCO Academy after returning from my deployment to Iraq in 2004, and I had skipped a very important step in my career progression, and that was I needed to go to the NCO Academy, the Airman Leadership School, to learn how to lead airmen in combat, because while I was in Iraq, not going through this training, they needed good NCOs. I had already tested for the rank of staff sergeant, had not put on that stripe, and one day, just shy of an attack, we had a rocket attack that happened. One of my NCOs walked up to me and said, hey, Sergeant Utrecht. And I said, what are you talking about? And he goes, Ami, Gami, Gami, you are now an NCO. Oh, by the way, here's some airmen, go lead them. And I had no idea what I was doing. And we had to run into fire. Things started exploding. And so I kind of stumbled through that, but I had the opportunity to go to the NCO Academy the moment I got back to the United States. And I was sitting there like Billy Madison, with 4 stripes on my arm, wearing a blue jean jacket, REO Speedwagon t-shirt with a bunch of airmen. So I'm already an NCO in the NCO Academy to learn how to be an NCO, but because of my situation, I was already there. And so I ended up graduating top honors from that school, and the commandant came up to me and said, Sergeant Utrecht, you did such a good job as a student. Let's go make you an educator as one of our next instructors. And that leads me to the path of, yeah, I've got a law enforcement background, a security background, a bodyguard background, but I'm a professional educator, and I love being that educator, whether it's in the classroom, it's on the firing line, or if it's helping my clients now understand what situational awareness is all about. So one day they don't need me. If I can train them up to be just as dangerous and polite member of society, I've done my job. So that kind of leads us to where we are today is I may be done with MDFI as an owner. I'm still an instructor, which I'm really looking forward to working under the guys that bought the company. But even if I wasn't still an instructor with MDFI, I would still consider myself an educator first. And I really love that job.
What
I want to read some of this too, but it's funny you say that too, because that's another similarity that we have. Man, I'm glad you got him to come down.
Well, I got a question.
But with the instructor and the educator part.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, you go.
No, I was just saying. No.
Okay,
All I was saying was I was the same way as far as once you started doing it. I loved being the educator part to educate people of, like you were saying. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's all I was. That's all. Go ahead.
There's no greater feeling. That's for sure.
Well, I guess because we had Travis, the one that does the green boots.
Yeah.
He does the neighborhood farming in the urban areas, but he was a military guy.
Okay.
He went to Redford High School, inner city kid, and I was telling my nephews when they were graduating, but this was years ago, like, man, if y'all don't have a direction, you know what you want to do. My cousin, when we graduated high school, he went to the Navy. He retired. He's been retired about 3 or 4 years, but he has a good living. Like I said, he did everything. He's doing real good. He had some little slights with skin cancer or whatever, but so he's overcoming that. But I told him, like, they didn't have a direction. I'm like, we're going, go enlist or go to the military. But in our community, it's like, no, don't do that. You're going to fight for the man, yada yada yada, all that. So what? Because I asked him the same question, like, what do you think about kids that have no direction, no discipline, and going into the military enlisting? Because it seemed like once you got in there, that switch clicked on, and then you became Trek.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I am the person that I am today because of the military service. But you bring up a great point. For the past many years, friends, family, whether going into law enforcement or the military, take pre-COVID. If someone were to call me, they're like, I don't know what I want to do. What do you think about going into the law enforcement, like Michigan State Police Academy, which has a very military-style discipline, and most law enforcement academies do, or go into the military. And I would talk them through it. I'd say, here's what to ask the recruiter. Here's what you want to make sure you don't sign without knowing what you're doing. But I would generally kind of push people towards it if they didn't have direction. Past 4 years, I've had to talk a lot of people out of it. When we have a military that was not about lethality, not about a merit-based system. And I was seeing even telltale signs of that, and it's been a long time since I was in. But even more so when I talk to the guys that are now people that I served with that are now master sergeants, senior master sergeants, and they're like, these kids that are coming in, they're entitled, and the military is helping them be entitled. It's not about physical fitness or meritocracy of merit-based promotions. It's about, whose rear end did you kiss, what briefing, PowerPoint presentation did you make, and the same with law enforcement. If the population, more specifically, if the civilian overseers of a law enforcement department don't have cops' backs, and we're seeing that a lot right now. I think we'd all agree there are bad cops out there. There's bad people out there. But most people are good. Most law enforcement are good. But when you have a society, when you have more specifically, City Hall treats all the cops like they're bad, why would you wantonly go deal with other people's problems knowing that no one has your back? When you have cops that that City Hall and the chief and the society is like, hey, we know that you guys might mess up a little bit and we'll hold those people that are criminal accountable. But all of you are good and we've got your back when you go into that house and you deal with a domestic violence situation. I've had to talk a lot of people out. Specifically, people are like, I want to go into the reserve program where they don't even pay. And I'm like, let me ask you this question. You've got a family, you have a job, and you want to go into reserve law enforcement where they're not going to pay you. So you're giving up time with your family. You're giving up time where you could go make money to a society right now that doesn't have your back. You have to pay for everything that you're going to buy. You can get killed for other people's problems
for free.
And that's sad because 5 years ago I would have said absolutely go help your community out. And I did that when I first got to Lake County. Tried to be a reservist, had a gun pointed at me in the classroom by the training sergeant, and immediately said, "I'm out." Like that was as close as I got.
That's
to being,
a story you hear all the time
as a reserve cop, right? So, it's. I think it's great in a perfect world, and I'm glad to see with not to get political, but there is a shifting wind, and it seems like the military is once again going to get back to: Are we lethal? Are you physically fit? Are you ready to fight? And if you do a good job, you will get promoted and you'll be in charge. I can start changing my mind because for me, it was a great path. There was lots of things that sucked about the military. I mean, but that's what kind of keeps, when you see military members with our weird sense of humor, and no matter how much it sucks, we kind of have a smile on our face because it's been worse, right? And it builds that character that when things are going wrong now, I kind of go, in fact, the story we were talking about before we came on about Pacific Palisades, my client looked at me and said, hey, when everything was going crazy, you weren't freaking out. And I said, sir, if I'm freaking out, you should really be worried because this was nothing. Like I've been under artillery in Iraq before, and believe me, a mountain on fire and us going the other direction, that's not that really big of a deal. Right. So I think it's a great idea, and I'm hoping I can start trusting that advice more as we go into the future.
I watch the Sean Ryan show a lot.
Sure.
Not a lot, but I watch it quite often. And a lot of the guys, team guys that come back and they talk, and they always talking like their kids or nephews out of it because it's exactly what you were saying. And it's crazy to hear them. They went through everything they went through, and it's still they you got with the PTSD issues and mental issues, and they like, no, we don't want our nephews and kids. I'm gonna try to talk you out of it, but if you still want to do it, go ahead. So it's crazy how all of them say the same thing. How the military is kind of like that now.
Let me ask you this. I don't want to two-part it, but kind of more or less. Do you think? And this is just because I was never military, but I come from a big military family. Literally, both sides, both grandfathers, one Air Force, one Army. My father's father enlisted in the Army when he was 15, back when you could, and lied, and he was through Korea and Vietnam, yada 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 yada, cousins, so forth. My question is this, because the training, like you said, the training was different then, and I'm probably sure it probably was different when you were there. Does it help or hurt to have the environment that we have now, to where the drill sergeants aren't per se the same as how they used to be, meaning that they can't be fully the way that they used to be?
Yeah, I can't speak to Full Metal Jacket where, choke yourself with my hand. I mean, that was definitely not the way it was.
Right.
But I
Because I've
remember,
heard a lot of that they can't be as tough as they used to be.
yeah. So I went through basic training on 30 January 2001. Graduated on 16 March 2001. And I remember, and I tell this story vividly. I mean, I still have dreams about basic training, and I'll wake up and be like, "Oh, thank God, I'm a grown man now, and I'm not actually in basic training." And why did I have a beard in basic training? And they were yelling at me. But
Right.
I still remember getting off that bus where it was all kind of calm, and all of a sudden, some NCO that now I realize was, nothing. But he gets on, starts screaming at us. We run off the bus, and I remember the campaign hat in the 11 o'clock, kind of those bug lights that they have that don't attract bugs. And I remember the shadow just below the nose of this drill instructor and his teeth glinting in the night. And he goes, "Well, looky what we got here." And I remember that. And it was a terrifying experience, and they molded us. And I remember looking back on the first couple weeks, my God, you stepped out of line even the smallest bit, and you would just get eaten alive. And then we're walking around, we're in our blues, we're doing everything right. They're pretty much leaving us alone unless you do something grievous. And the reality is, we're not doing anything grievous because they've trained us very, very well. I have heard, and I have not confirmed, I haven't stepped foot at Lackland Air Force Base in a very long time. I have heard that it has gotten pretty soft. Timeout cards and things like that when someone's stressed out. Well, the whole purpose of basic training is to stress you out. And if you can keep breaking people down and then building them up, the idea is that when things are exploding in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, wherever, you do your job and you're not worried about the things that are making loud noise. The guys that were screaming at you represent the explosions, the gunfire, and all of that. So, and from what I understand, and I have some friends in different branches, the Marine Corps seem to be, and they have always held, whether it's physical fitness standards, the way that they train, their leadership on down has basically said, we're not watering ourselves down for the sake of other people's feelings. And so from what I've heard, Army, and I see all these clips on Instagram where the troops are laughing with the drill instructors. And then I see the clips of the Marine instructors eating their recruits alive, right? And I can never imagine, even to the point where my drill instructor put me on the bus to the other side of Lackland Air Force Base to get yelled at for another 4 months at the Law Enforcement Academy. He was not a friend, even at the last final moment. So I can't imagine what it would be like to joke and smoke with a drill instructor. So I can't say from firsthand knowledge, but from all the stories and the compiled information, it sounds like things have gotten pretty soft. And the downside, in my opinion, is if it's soft, then you're not making the harder tools to come out of training. And we really have not faced a peer enemy in a very, very long time. And that's a whole other rabbit hole to go down. But I think that if we're not training to be very lethal with limited resources, which we've depleted ourselves pretty well with what's going on over in Ukraine, and especially with the changing of drone and AI technology, we need to really be shaping ourselves up. And like I said, I hope there's a kick to the rear end happening with the current administration.
Question. So when you went to the Air Force, like where were you deployed at? Like what kind of operations did you get into?
So I'm a veteran of Operation Enduring Freedom, Iraqi Freedom, and Southern Watch. Those sound really fancy. It means that I went to Kuwait and I went to Iraq. That's it. They hit you with all these operations. I did not go to Afghanistan. I have a lot of friends that did. My theater of war was Iraq. So the two deployments that I had, I was given Tyndall Air Force Base, Florida, right out of basic training, and I luckily had a friend that he did not want to leave the United States. He got Aviano Air Base, Italy. And I didn't join the military to stay in the United States, so I immediately traded. Then I found out that Aviano was a nuke base. And there's all sorts of stupid requirements when you're a guy that guards nukes for a living. So I didn't get to see Italy at all. I could only go 45 minutes away from the air base unless I took leave. And so I basically stayed. I saw Venice, but I did get to drive a crotch rocket in Italy and all that stuff.
There you go.
So from Italy, I went to Kuwait, and I was in Kuwait at Al Jaber Air Base, which was a very interesting place because it had the remnant scars of the first Gulf War. So when the Iraqis rolled in, they actually took that air base from the Kuwaitis in a matter of hours. And so that air base still many years later had pock marks on the runways from the cluster bomblets. It had the giant holes in the protective aircraft shelter where the paveway laser guided bombs had gone in and blown up the aircraft inside, and all the rebar was still hanging down. And so we actually had a very important mission, which was Southern Watch. And that was because of the restrictions from the first Gulf War. There was a no-fly zone that was being enforced. And so our base, well, it was a Kuwaiti base. We had a smaller American contingent inside. And every single day, F-16s from the U.S. Air Force would take off and intercept Iraqi airliners that were coming very, very close to the no-fly zone. It was more of a show of force, but these aircraft would take off every day loaded to bear. They were ready for a dogfight. And I remember guarding these aircraft because I was a security forces, and during stateside work, we do law enforcement. And when we're deployed and stateside, we do security work, guarding aircraft and restricted resources. When we would guard these F-16s that would sit ready to go, they were on the pavement ready to roll. I had this little gate shack with a ring of sandbags around it, and I would be staring at a Patriot missile system. And if you haven't seen it, it's the 4-barrel. It can intercept a bullet. These missiles are incredible. They shoot down Scud missiles. They're part of like the Iron Dome. And then there was a Kuwaiti quad machine gun anti-aircraft system. And every now and then the little radar would start spinning, and you'd see this thing spin around, and it was doing a systems check. And I would always turn to my friend and go, "Hey, bud, what are you going to do the day that little radar comes on and it spins around and that rocket goes out of there?" And we kind of joked about it. My replacements that actually replaced me were there when Gulf War II kicked off, and my buddy was standing right there, and that radar came on, and he goes, "Oh, they're doing a systems check." And one of those rockets took off, and it was a Scud coming in, and that was the start of the war. So my first deployment was we didn't do much in Kuwait, but we were there, and it was the lead up to. In fact, it was I was there on the first anniversary of 9/11, if I'm not mistaken. So we went into ThreatCon Delta. They were anticipating a copycat attack. But my real deployment was in 2004 to Kirkuk, Iraq. That was where it was Operation Iraqi Freedom, and we were the second most attacked installation in theater. So every single day we were getting either small arms fire or mostly artillery, and they were just bombarding the base with, I can't even emphasize enough, if you looked out on the ground, there were mortar shells, hand grenades. There was so much ordnance that had just been abandoned by the Iraqis that the insurgents were just getting all of this ordnance. They were fabricating whatever they could, and they would launch it back at us. So it was 182 glorious days of getting shot at every single day. That was my most recent, and I always say it dates me because that was 2004 and now 2025. So it's been a while since I was in the theater of war, and I know things have changed. The Afghanistan theater was completely different, but it was a heck of a ride nonetheless.
I guess I was going to ask, like, what situation was you in? Like, oh, shit, I'm in some shit here.
Yes, I got really lucky because
this is real.
Oh, yeah.
This is real. Okay.
What the hell was I thinking?
It was very lucky because I worked night shift in Iraq, which was day shift in the United States. So I didn't have to adjust to the time change. But the night shift was when, you're not going to take on the United States military when there's 4 of you during the day, because we'd be like, "Hey, there they are, kill them." So they would sneak up at night, and that's when they would attack. So we had some absolutely wild times. Our munitions storage area took a direct hit. One night that I was on post, that made it all the way around the world. There's video of it to this day. 16 hours of chain reaction of 2,000-pound bombs exploding, and it was simply a grass fire that started it. It was an unexploded rocket that missed me and my partner, went right over the top of our head, went about 800 meters, hit the ground, got into dry grass, didn't detonate, and a grass fire slowly burned right up to explosives sitting on the ground, and it went absolutely crazy. So for 16 hours, we had literally artillery shells just falling out of the sky all over the base. It was an absolutely wild time.
Woo. Man,
16 hours.
That's crazy.
I'm tired after 8 hours on the range. Hell.
Right. 4 or 5 or 6 hours.
6 hours, like, man, when is lunch?
My finger hurts.
They just toss you an MRE. You're good to go.
Yeah,
Right.
Good to go.
Lunch.
In
that cowbell.
amongst the questions, I got a couple in my head as well, as far as like other movies and stuff in military. Because I'm an action junkie. It's a lot of stuff that I
It's a question on there.
love to do, and love to be involved in and so forth. But I love the stuff. Which one? The Full Metal Jacket?
Yeah. Ask him about that.
Oh, Lord.
All right. Okay, Trek. So be real. Did Full Metal Jacket get anything right, or was it just all Hollywood yelling and chaos?
They got right that they got R. Lee Ermey to play the drill sergeant.
Right.
From what I understand, he was the technical advisor, and the guy that was the actor just was not good. And basically, R. Lee Ermey was losing his mind and said, "Let me show you how it's done." And from what I understand, Kubrick was like, "You're now the actor."
I heard that story too.
And that started, God bless the gunny, right? I couldn't tell you. I was never a Marine. I did not have to experience the Marine life in the Vietnam era. I do know that uncles that did serve in the U.S. Army and Marine Corps in Vietnam, there were many things, especially the booby traps. They always talk about the kick the can
Mm-hmm.
game that got a lot of Americans killed because you'd put something on a trail. It looked like an innocuous item. They had a hand grenade inside, and the American is going to kick that can because they're bored, and all of a sudden a little hand grenade
Ooh.
comes out and the spoon comes off. So there, I mean, I'm
What?
sure there were very uh, realistic things in the movie, but I can't attest it of
Okay,
realism.
so let's change the movie then, because it will be something closer to what you would have
Sure.
experienced then. So I give you two movies, and I love both of these movies. Let's address American Sniper and Zero Dark 30. More specific, the more or less the military operation at the end. I know you weren't SEAL, and so forth, but as far as just the reality of some of those scenes and when they're there.
So American Sniper and
Zero Dark 30.
Zero Dark 30. Once again, the American Sniper, the only thing I've heard from the community that actually would know a lot more about that is there were a lot of inconsistencies or Hollywoodization from it, and I've only seen the movie once, so I can't even really remember
Gotcha.
anything other than the actor who played Chris Kyle in
right.
that, right? So Zero Dark 30. Once again, we're never probably going to know the absolute truths behind it.
Correct.
I do know that they did lose the aircraft due to whatever reason. They did have to detonate or leave part of the aircraft behind. It was a new variant of a stealth transport helicopter. I enjoyed the movie nonetheless, but more importantly, what I took from that movie, and I go by what I call the rule of 50%. If 50% is true and 50% is false, the 50% that's true is still pretty damning.
Yeah.
If that's what it took to finally get the mastermind of 9/11, good Lord. I mean, they were right in Pakistan the entire time. So if there is a
Right.
truth to that, it's just like all the files that are coming out now. I have a feeling that
Right.
there's a lot of things where we've built up in our mind that have been falsities. But I would always aim for the truth. So I would love to know what in those movies are true and what's false, because we shouldn't be telling, especially about real, if it's an action movie that's fictitious, make it as outrageous you want to make it.
Right.
If you're going to take a movie about a true event, you need to speak the truth. Humans are not perfect. There can be failures that are still heroic successes. And as long as we own it as a country, and I think a lot of times we take things and say everything was done perfectly. And in war, there is no possible way that we do everything right. And that is that very fog of war. So, yeah, unfortunately, two movies I've seen only a couple times, but I really can't speak to truths on it.
And aren't they doing another part of Black Hawk Down, aren't they?
It's something. I don't know about another movie, but there is something on Netflix I think right now that's called it's like Black Hawk Down. I don't want to say it's like Behind Lines, but it's almost like a what really happened or what was going on.
Shane.
It's got something.
Operation Gothic Serpent, about the whole mission there.
I think that's what it is, but it's like it's got a weird specific type of name. Matter of fact, I probably could pull it up and tell you what it says.
Chaos Stereo Shane, he was involved in that. I said, hey bro, we gonna see you on TV? You gonna get some credits from that movie? I don't know. I just remember that it's supposed to be. I just seen another episode of not an episode, another part they doing 10 years later, whatever it was.
I can never speak to a movie. I know that the story of what those Rangers, Delta, and the SOAR 160th SOAR, and all the other service members that were there, what they went through. Is absolutely incredible. All I do remember, I did watch Black Hawk Down the first time at the Aviano Air Base Theater with all military members.
How was that?
There was not a spoken sound at the end of that movie, and everybody filed out of that theater. And it was it's very interesting when you watch military movies with a military audience. It's just like at the end of the national anthem, you'll never hear military members don't cheer; they stand there solemn. But Americans, of course, we cheer the national anthem. It's just a very interesting dynamic because people can picture we're in this uniform, that could be us, and it kind of hits you a little different way. I don't think there was any. It was absolute respect of what happened, but it was a very interesting dynamic to not hear a single word.
What is it called?
It's called Surviving Black Hawk Down, and it looks like it's more or less a documentary.
Okay.
I think they're probably talking to some of the people that were involved, but some of the stuff looks like they're having some reenactments as well. and talking about certain aspects of the whole mission. So yeah, it's
So
interesting.
when did you get out? So when did you getting out that and doing your the police or the reserve, and where did the MDFI come about? How did you meet the Big Yeti or Steve Fisher, or how did that even materialize?
Yeah, so I got out just about in 2010. Got done with my last bit of training. Ended up working for MDFI, Michigan Defensive Firearms Institute LLC. It was the
I'm
name
glad
at the
you
time.
said that because I keep saying MDFI, so I want people to know exactly what it means. But go
Yeah,
ahead,
no,
I'm
it's
sorry.
so MDFI, Michigan Defensive Firearms Institute. Started working as an unpaid assistant instructor in 2010. We had a cadre of like 6 guys. It was very loose. There was, you show up, maybe you get some gas money. Um, but I ended up running the company in 2011 with another instructor, and actually was doing the day to day. And I remember back then, my God, the money was, you'd get checks in a PO box, and it was just an Excel spreadsheet of credit. And we would, oh my God, we'd type out these handwritten certificates, and we spent so much time on that stuff. But we'd be happy at that time if we had 6 students in a class. And the big thing that I take away from that time was I was a formally trained educator. I was a graduate of the Air University's College for Professional Military Education instructor school, and I was taught how to write curriculum. We didn't have curriculum. There was no, maybe a note card with some drills to do. And we knew what the students needed to get, like in a handgun 1, and that was always the funny part. Like back then, it was handgun 1, handgun 2, which is why MDFI to this day, we don't have that, because I completely hate the fact that every firearms company has handgun 1, handgun 2, carbine 1, carbine 2. And then when you get to shotgun, there's no shotgun 2 because nobody knows what you're supposed to do for a 2-level shotgun. It's like it's a shotgun, right? So we scorched earth in 2013 when I bought the company. I said, this is going to end. And so Scorched Earth, the only name that we kept, was to this day the most popular class, which I cannot take credit for the name, but I will take credit for the class that it is now, and that's You Suck, It's Not the Gun.
Yeah,
And
I've
that
seen
is a
it.
very
Yeah,
well-known class. Now, when it was created because of a joke in the cadre where we had a cadre went to or worked at an indoor range. Guy comes in, buys a new gun, tries to shoot the bullseye, comes into the counter and says, the gun's off. You have a sight adjustment tool. And the instructor goes out, shoots a bullseye, and said, "You suck. It's not the gun." Now that's funny and it's rude, right? It's rude. You're not going to
Right.
get new students if
Right.
you're rude.
Right.
And so what we did is I tailored that and said, okay, this is just a bunch of notes on a card. So let's look at the learning process. Let's break it down and try to get a marked improvement from AM to PM. And so I rewrote the curriculum. It was 20 pages of exactly the step-by-step process of how we're going to do it in a very safe, fun, and educational environment. But the biggest thing that I did is I changed. It's not, and I know we're on audio, but it's not me pointing at the student going, "You suck. It's not the gun." The mindset of the class is that I was a full-time firearms instructor for 15 years. I carry a gun. I'm carrying a gun right now because I'm an American and I have the right to do so. But I also, even though I have a range in my backyard in beautiful Luther, Michigan, I don't spend all my time on a range.
Right.
I'm an adult. I got bills to pay and a
Right.
job to do. So it's me looking at my reflection in the mirror, watching me reach to my everyday carry tray where my pepper spray, my wallet, my money clip, and my gun is. And my reflection says to me, "Hey, Trek, are you going to carry that gun today?" And I go, "Of course, man. You know I'm going to carry a gun. Probably have 2 guns because that's the way that I roll." And my reflection says, "When's the last time you practiced, man? Because according to the federal law enforcement statistic, you have about a 19 to 20% hit ratio in a gunfight if you're an expert. And where's that other 80% of those rounds going?" And that's into all these people out here and these homes and these buildings out here. So it basically, my reflection says, "Dude, you need to practice more because you suck. It's not the gun."
Mm.
And that's it. So we changed that mindset. And so when the students in this class, we would demonstrate everything, but we made them understand. And we do a demo at the very beginning of the day. And it seems simple, and we have to do it, and we have to thread the needle with a couple rounds, and we as the instructors consider it the hardest drill that we'll ever have to do because we have 24 students watching us, from standing normally, threading around through a 1-inch circle, one-handed through a 1-inch circle, standing on 1 foot. Some of us shoot it upside down, and we have to get the hit, because if we can't get that hit in that circle, we can't teach for the rest of the day. And they think it's magic at the beginning of the day, and at the very end of the day they go, "That was nothing," because we've taught them all it took to get those hits. And so with that sight alignment and trigger control, and of course the different techniques of grip, stance, posture, presentation, we take them down to learning. And I do a scientific method. There is a control group, and an experiment. And we show them through control group of do the way you normally do it, then try this weirdness that I'm going to throw at you. And we watch them get better and better and better. And the coolest thing about that class that I absolutely love is they shoot 10 rounds at the beginning of the day with no instruction. At the very end of the day, they shoot the same drill, and the improvement that we see, it's that as an instructor, as an educator, when you see people go, I was so frustrated, and I'm not perfect, but now I know how to practice on my own, and they find that 110 rounds fired in 8 hours was more valuable than any round they have ever fired in their entire life. And that to me is, and I'm really proud. Now, the crazy thing is, I'm done with live fire. I have 15 years. I got enough gray in my beard. The biggest thing for me is there's a You Suck It's Not the Gun class coming up this year, and I am so proud to see what my guys are going to take from a class that I taught for 15 years, only me, and they got to teach it now. And it's not going to be the same, but the outcome will be the same. And I'm really looking forward to see how they do it.
What's the day you took over? What day was that?
When I actually started running the company,
Mhm.
I was in 2011, started running it, and I bought it in 2013.
So look, I'm just gonna tell you.
Oh, look at this.
I'm an OG.
That is an old school
Mine
card.
says 2015, right? So I was telling people I was training with Trek before they even came up with this.
Yep.
I was training with Trek.
Turn it this way so they can see.
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
Trek
that is-
right there too. So that's
Okay, yeah.
and then this one right here. So this is 2015. This is alumni card, and I probably
You know what? I don't have my phone on, but I believe that's got to be one of the first years.
I want to say it is, and I don't. They're like, man, you don't have your full tour. Like the people that come, they say, yeah. People ask me, do you have a full tour? I said, no, I don't have my full tour because I was training with Trek privately before
Right.
that whole thing started. And I said, it's funny you said about the. I remember getting out the car, and I'm a newbie, newbie. He was like, I want to say it was 25 yards, bro. It was the bay at post 46. He said, get out of the car. We loaded up. He told me to shoot, 50 rounds at this steel target. Whatever. Man, I missed every cold start, bro. No warm up. I said, this is some bullshit.
I can believe it.
Dog, it was a cold start. It's funny.
That's
right
probably
out the
what
car,
if you did me.
loaded up,
Okay, yeah, sure.
missed. I probably hit. Let's just say maybe the drill was 50 shots. I mean 50 rounds. How many times you hit the steel at 25 yards or 40? It was deep. At that time, it was deep as hell for me because I was a newbie, and I probably hit it 3 times. And every time when I hit, I was like, yeah, but I missed like 10 others.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, damn, Trek doing this to me. Right?
It's a good diagnostic right off the bat. We'll see where
Oh
you're at.
my God. It was man, that right there changed my life. But then I took like handgun one with him, and I took AR rifle class. I took some private class with him. But the one thing I do remember and I liked was when they first started, because once again, I was the only one out there. I was one of one, like black guy from the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't feel like I felt out of place because of my skill set, but not as people looking at me, weird or whatever, treating me different. Like instructors, like, okay, grip this, and this, and they were just teaching. And that was when y'all first jumped off with a Raven concealment.
Mm-hmm.
I had no holster. I didn't know what a Kydex holster was. I didn't know all that cool shit was.
Mm-hmm.
One of the dudes gave me a holster because I probably had the serpentine, the shit,
Mhm.
we don't wear no more. And I had that. I had my Glock 19. He gave me a holster for it, and I beat that thing up at the end of class. He looked at it like, this is some shit now, and it's tossed it away. He said, I felt so bad. I'm like, I'm sorry, dude.
No, that's what they're for.
You know what I'm saying? That was like the first generation of Raven concealment. They've been around for a while, but it was cool though to take that class and not feel out of place.
Man, you know what? I'm gonna add this to it, man. And this is the me in this. When I hear stuff like this, it's one of those things where you hear that he's more or less, I don't want to say retired, but he's no longer fully, invested as far as the training and stuff. From a personal standpoint, I get mad, and I'm gonna tell you why I say that, because it's okay. I'm gonna reference it this way in Kill Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Kill Bill, Hattori Hanzo made the sword, right? But
Last sword.
Hanzo stopped making swords. You know what I'm saying? He stopped it altogether. So it's like the best swords maker stopped making swords and took this vow to never do it again. So it's like, well, how do you compete with Bill, who's got this Hattori Hanzo, and there's no more out there? But then she convinces Hanzo to make one last sword and does it. So for me, it would be like, look, man, it's nothing personal. I wouldn't mind taking a class at MDFI and blah 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 blah. But I want to learn it from Hanzo. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's one of those types of things that for me personally is like that. Like I know the instructor has taught his disciples to be a certain way and do it, and the training is going to be excellent. However, it's not going to be still not be the same from the originator. You know what I'm saying?
I will counter with this. Hattori Hanzo was a master swordsmaker, is a master swordsmaker, live long.
Right.
And he was set in his ways.
Right.
And steel changes,
Mm-hmm.
techniques change, clay gets refined.
Mm-hmm.
So he teaches his mentees everything he knows about sword making.
Mm-hmm.
And they, because they've been paying attention to the way that new things are, they add sprinkles into the steel that he never would have thought of. And while the name Hattori Hanzo's not on it, it's better. And I would say that there is no way I would have left MDFI in the hands of guys that couldn't make better swords than me.
Oh,
And so,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm
Yeah.
very proud. I mean, believe me, if I thought I was given, it was like making MDFI in a train wreck, I wouldn't still be. I wouldn't be an instructor.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm
Oh
really,
no, I fully agree
Sure.
with you.
When I seen that, I was like, wow, because I know how Trek is, and been around. I remember one time I came out there in a private session. I said something stupid to Trek. He looked at me like, "What?" I said, "Okay, I ain't gonna ask that stupid ass question again." I was like, "Do I look through the front or the back sights? Do I aim this?" He looked at me like, "What?" I said, "You know what? Forget it.
Never mind. Don't worry about what I said.
Never mind. Forget it."
Go ahead, teach.
It was just, man, it was post 46, and then when Trek walked into my job, my poster, I was like, damn, they go Trek. Like, what's up, dude? He was like, I'm out here. But it was cool, man, just to be involved. What?
No, I'm about to say since we on that MDFI, some of these questions kind of apply to. So let's go.
Throw them in there.
Just a couple quick ones here.
Sure.
So, Trey, let's go with this one. If John Wick
Oh God.
walked into MDFI for a class, would you pass him, or would you wash him out and get rid of him because of poor muzzle discipline?
Well, he muzzled pretty much everyone that John Wick muzzled was a bad guy. So I really can't get him on rule number 2. If I watched him do that stupid throw your pistol up one-handed, do a press check, I would boot him out of the class because that's just a good way to drop a gun. The center axis relock crap, this stuff.
Right.
There's a lot of Hollywood flash, and I know he's done a lot of firearms training.
Yeah,
I'm
he's
not
done a
saying
lot
the
of
guy
training,
can't
yeah,
shoot. I would treat Keanu or John Wick. If it was John Wick, I would basically I would make sure I don't insult him at all because I don't want to die by a pencil. But if it was Keanu Reeves and he came to a class, I would look at his. And this is the most important thing. We've had students, and a great example. So, when I teach you suck, it's not the gun. We literally draw sights on the target about a lot of people actually don't know. They know that iron sights, and we teach red dots too because that is the technology of today. But we draw iron sights because a lot of people don't actually understand how you're supposed to line them up. They have a somewhat idea, and there's a sight called an excess big dot sight. Now on a shotgun, pretty neat. I would choose a red dot on a shotgun because it's cheating, as Tim Nelson, the owner of MDFI, likes to say. But excess big dot sights, they're round. It's a round front sight, and then the rear sight is this weird V notch. And by the way that you use iron sights with 4 right angles, it's really easy with the human brain to line up 4 right angles with equal height, equal light. The excess big dot sight, you have to do a lot more mental gymnastics to actually get a proper sight picture. And most people, and this I have to say it, most people that come to classes with excess big dot sights end up taking them off after the first class with MDFI, not because we make fun of them, but because we prove to them that they're having to do way too much work. If they want iron sights, get some Ameriglow to 4 sights. They're $35. They're solid black metal. They hold up to abuse, and they work really well. That said, I've had students, some John Wicks, with excess big dot sights that are like freaking snipers. So I can never make a blanket statement. You're wrong. So what I would do if John Wick was in a class is I would put him through the diagnostic. And if John Wick is shooting the ragged center out of the stupid target, I'm going to be like, John, keep doing what you're doing, man. I'm going to look for little tweaks. But right now, for the instruction that we're at, you're doing everything that you need to do. If we started seeing failures where his performance was now being degraded to the other peers in the class, we would give him tips and tricks. But until I get somebody on the line, I never make assumptions. Unless they're carrying a 1911. Okay, if they're carrying a 1911, I make assumptions. No, I'm just joking. And I make that joke, and there's some truth to it. In 15 years, I've had people ask, what are some Stereotypes that have lived up to expectations, and there are two. Generally, if someone is over the age of 60, first time with MDFI, and they're carrying a 1911, or they say they're retired law enforcement, those are the two people that I have to watch out for the most. And it's generally because of a lifetime of bad habits.
Mm-hmm.
Law enforcement, every time I hear someone saying only cops and military should have guns, have never survived the days that I have survived in the line with cop shooters. Cops are some of the worst gun handlers. That said, I've got some cop brethren that are John Wick. They are incredible. But the average cop, they get lackadaisical with their guns because they carry them all the time. And at the same time, if you're later on in life and you have never trained and you have those the myelination, the neural pathways of you've been doing it probably not right for your entire life, and so we have a lot of work to do. But those are things that you learn over 15 years, and it's not they still get the same chance in class, but they definitely get an eyeball a little bit more on them at the first couple steps.
It's funny you mentioned the pencil.
Oh, one of the questions.
Yeah. What's more dangerous, a pencil in John Wick's hand or a student that refuses to listen on the range?
Oh, dear Lord, a student that refuses to listen. Listen, I'll fight John Wick with a pencil all day long because a student that is wielding a gun willy-nilly, I mean, there's a reason people look at my photos, they're like, man, there was a lot of red in your beard a couple years ago. I'm like, yeah, do live fire training for 15 years. You'll get a lot of gray hair really quick.
So let me ask you this. With over, I'm going to say 1,600 hours of instruction across military and civilian space.
I'm glad you, I ain't mean to cut you, but I'm glad you said that because every time I got something I want to touch in his bio, he talks about it. So.
Right. So how has your teaching style evolved, and what do you bring to the table that most instructors don't, that you kind of, and I say the most instructors don't, and then kind of add it to the MDFI curriculum?
That's a great question. So the question has come up on interviews before where people are like, hey, Trek, you're nationally known. You're a regional school, but people around, and I'm known the Brian Terry Foundation stuff at SHOT Show. So it's not all MDFI, but we are known, MDFI, across the country as a quality school, and I'm very proud of that. Safe, fun, and educational. But people go, Trek, Pat Mack, been there, done that, dude. My goodness. All the other guys that are nationally known out there, right? They're not an Air Force cop. You don't hear about a lot of Air Force MPs, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Well, I'm not. I happen to be a former cop with the military, but I'm an educator. And there's very few nationally known instructors that have a degree in teaching. I have a degree in teaching, and that's what I tell. I've got, and I say I have to be careful now. I used to have as my employees. Now my peers at MDFI, we've got some soldiers, we've got some civilians. We've got one crayon-eating Marine, which I absolutely love to death, with the VA police force. We've got these guys that have been there, done that resume. I told them it doesn't matter what you did. You could have the Medal of Honor. If you handle a gun poorly, you'll never be on my cadre. If you talk down to students, you'll never be on my cadre. If you cannot be a professional educator, you'll never be on my cadre. So we look at things. I would say it's not a me thing. It's a MDFI. We look at things as a professional educator, and so I'll break it down. A lot of instructors out there, and I've seen this, that have great programs that have been data-driven, that are saving lives, but they're instructors only. And they're actually very poor instructors because an instructor's job is to give feedback. Feedback is what you're doing good, what you're doing bad, and if you're doing something bad, it's not to make fun of you, it's to give you the tools that you need to improve. So a lot of quote-unquote instructors, you pay money to go to their class, they stand in front of the class, they have the coolest gear because people gave it to them for free, or they're using some commission program, right? So every Instagram post is like a hashtag where they're making money on it. And then they shoot their demos. Everyone pulls out their phone. You've seen it. So students aren't getting anything. They're like, oh, look at this. I get to watch this guy shoot. Well, so they're not paying attention to what the instructor's trying to show. And then he says, go forth and do what I just did. And some do it, some don't. And the instructor just goes, all right, guys, moving on to the next point. Well, what were they doing good? Tell the people they were doing good. They were doing good. The people that were not doing good, you can't just say you suck. You've got to say, hey, man, take your thumbs. Let's do a little bit of grip work. Make sure you're crushing the gun. Get a good high tang grip on it, whatever it is. So it's give feedback. That's an instructor's job, not just to wear a rhinestone instructor patch that you bought on Amazon. The other part about it being an educator, that's different from being an instructor. An instructor is just to relay information and give feedback, but an educator's job, one, is to revel in your student success. We've all had teachers where you had this feeling in high school that they loved putting an F on your paper. They actually liked the feeling that it made you when you were like, oh man, I suck. And they're like, this guy's a failure. Well, that's not a teacher.
Right.
Teacher should be like, dude, you got an A plus. Yes. And what that is I love the fact that you got an A plus. Man, I'm doing my job. I'm doing my job because that guy got an A plus. And at the same time, when I put an F on a student's paper, I have failed that student. I have failed them. My job is to relay information, and through whether they were capable or inclined or disinclined or incapable, my job is to read those people, fill in what I'm supposed to do as a learning technique, and make sure that they're better. So a lot of guys out there, they're just like, thanks for the money. Thanks for the money. Now, as an instructor and educator, there's a certain point in time, and in 15 years, I guarantee I've done it, where you care, they don't. And you're like, man, you keep doing this. And they're like, well, I've always done it. I know, but you paid to come here. So try what we're offering. And if you don't like it, go back to the way you're doing it. And every time they keep doing the other thing, eventually in your brain, you have to say, thanks for the money, but I've got to give attention to the people that are actually trying what we offer.
Right.
I've had, a handful of students in 15 years that they just paid me money to shoot paper, but they really didn't want to learn. But if they are engaged and they want to learn, I cannot leave them behind. I've got to work with them because their failure is my failure, right? And so the long answer to your short question is, that's what MDFI does different. I've seen and I hear from my alumni that come through and they're like, yeah, it was a great class, but there was 37 people on a firing line. There was one instructor with no assistant instructors. At MDFI, we never go more than a 6 student to 1 instructor ratio. We aim for 4 students to 1 instructor, because how can I give you feedback if there's, first of all, if you're in a class with 37 students in a basic class with 1 instructor, leave. The danger to your life is too great, because I cannot watch the muzzles of 37 students. But if you see an instructor every 4 students, and we can be there real quick in case something happens, and our job also is to play chess. I can look at someone by the way they're gripping their gun that they're about to do a safety issue. That's 15 years of learning students' behavior. I can look at the gear that they wear and go, that's the person I need to watch out for in the first couple reps. And 99 times out of 100, we are absolutely correct. We do not revel in this, but my last year, I specifically remember many times where in the opening briefing, we would rally up before we'd rally the students, go, okay, who do you got your eyes on? And every single person that everyone was like, that's the person, they would end up getting removed. And we would give them all the attention we could possibly give them, but they would be the person just by tuning yourself after 15 years, 16,000 hours of instruction. You start to get very, very good at chess playing.
Well,
What's your favorite saying of mine when it comes to instructing?
I don't know what's your favorite saying.
No,
Shit,
I said, what do I say about teaching classes that you always bring up?
Oh, that you can teach a monkey how to shoot or something like that?
I always say that when I do classes, I tell people basically just that. The classroom work and for the CPO class and stuff, the classroom work and the paperwork stuff, this stuff is simple. I can literally, if you give me enough time, I could probably teach a monkey how to shoot and actually do this for real. It's not really about that, because you're going to lose so much of this paperwork. It is what it is. But for me to actually teach you how to shoot is when I go on the range, that's where you're going to get the full detail of intricacies from literally you, like you said, shooting and being all over the place here to literally by the time we're done, you may not be groups here, the good ones will, but even just from here to here, the improvement that you've done in the short period of time that we have together, that's where I like to shine better. Because again, anybody can, because we know instructors to do it. You're going through in the teaching points and you're putting a lesson plan together, and it's according to what Joe Schmo organization says it has to be, whatever. But again, we can all teach anybody that. It's literally actually doing it and showing them why they're doing it or what they're supposed to be or the correct way. And
well, you bring up such a great point, and you guys have probably, I have never been a CPL instructor, never did. I jumped right into I hate to say above CPL, but you had to have a CPL to start with MDFI. The CPL program, and I tell this in my opening briefing all the time, we should be very worried when the government, so let's talk Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is to keep the government in check, but the government now says NRA is approved, MCRGO is approved, the USCCA is approved, and then any other program that meets the criteria by Michigan codified law.
Mm-hmm.
And the state goes, your program's great.
Right.
So let me get this straight. The government, that the whole Second Amendment is supposed to keep in check, goes, you have all the training that you need to carry this gun. it should terrify the hell out of us, because if the potential enemy is saying you're good, you need more training.
Right.
So it is on the CPL instructors who are allowed to add but not subtract.
Right.
If you go to the, and I'm not, I've heard that there's like the $1 CPL classes or whatever, you're probably going to get, because let's be honest, if I'm not making any money on it and I'm doing it purely for marketing, you're going to get the basic requirement program versus guys that care. And they're like, all right, guys, so check this out. You notice that it said to 6 p.m. tonight, and you're like, but we're done with the curriculum at 4. Well, you have 2 hours of additional material that we're going to give you that's going to be really important. That's not required, but it's part of our program. Those are the people that care. They're not just churning out a puppy mill. And that's why I have not heard a complaint, and I'm very proud of it. Our opening briefing is anywhere between 1 hour and an hour and a half, depending on the size of the group and the skill set of the group, because we know that the majority of students in the core and foundation classes, when those long briefings occur, will only take one class with MDFI. Most people only take one. They think they're good, and that's fine. So what I'm really trying to do is I got to make them understand what's acceptable and unacceptable with a firearm. Even if that is the only thing they walk away from, one, they won't point a gun at somebody that doesn't deserve it. They understand the 4 rules, and they can identify bad gun handling to keep them safe and their families safe when they go to the range. Then, of course, we have an 8-hour day of firearms training, but I'm going to make sure when they leave, they go, you know, all that stuff that's been happening at the range, oh my God, I've been in danger this entire time. And now they can go, I'm leaving. And that's what I really have always taken away from our classes. I'm trying to give them far more than what they really thought they were signing up for.
You know, when I send people to your class, and like you said, Bear, he didn't get the swordsman, and I was like, look, y'all gotta go take an MDFI
Eventually,
class.
I'm gonna still do it. Eventually, I'm.
I'm just saying this.
That was kind of jokingly for show,
Well,
and everything,
I'm just
you know,
saying,
of course.
like,
but,
generally,
but yeah, I'm gonna definitely do it.
And I try to give the people that would take your class and mention the classes, I say, okay, well, come in here with me and let's work on some stuff so you can be a little bit better when you get to a handgun 1 class. Because I'm sending you to this class, and I don't want to hear an email like, hey, man, this guy that came to class, he was terrible, or this, that, and that. So I try to give them the you know, some game ahead of time to teach them, and then I see instructors out of state, and I was like, I want to go train with them. I want to go do this. And I sit there and say, I got good teaching here. Like, it's hard for me to try to go out of state and see instructors that I really want to take, because I'm like, I can just take an MDFI class. Because from the curriculum when I started to now, you offer so much that you don't have to go anywhere. You can get advanced training outside of MDFI. Like, you don't have to go. You can just stay MDFI all day and train and train and train. And what was unique about it, when I started looking at it, I knew this about like you said, it's more about like the mission statement, the philosophy. Let's talk about that, because you said something that's more about tactics than it is about, you know, the mission statement, the philosophy of MDFI.
Yeah, so safe, fun, and educational is the kind of the motto of it, right? Safety is paramount. We run the most controlled school, and the guys now run the most controlled classes, and I will put that up against anybody else. And it's been pretty much proven every time we hear a horror story from an alumni that comes back. We're not a tactical school, and and the true reality is it's an overused phrase. I mean, my God, I get advertisements in my email inbox like the tactical waffle maker. It's got Molly on it. Like, I was in the military. I wore that turtle gear. I mean, I got friends with back problems because they were jumping out of airplanes with 70 pounds of gear on, and I wasn't wearing that. I mean, I wasn't wearing that much, but I was, you know, yeah, I remember lugging a lot of stuff around. Now that I'm out of the military, yeah, I got a plate carrier, and it's set up, and it's to protect my homestead and my wife and my innocent life and my country. But I train with it every now and then. But when I go, if I'm taking a class, I got a spare AR mag in my back blue jean pocket. I'm running from my appendix rig. Now, that being said, you probably should get the plate carrier out and practice with it in a class from time to time.
Right.
But as long as we're being honest, and what I have noticed from what MDFI was to what MDFI is now, is we used to have a lot of plate carriers. We used to have a lot of tactical gear. And now we got moms, dads, sisters, and brothers that do have AR-15s. And they might have a very simple chest rig that they want to try out. But a lot of times after the plate carriers are there, you see guys go, oh man, in the middle of the night, I'm going to have my rifle, and I'm going to probably put a spare mag in my back pocket, and I want to practice with that. And then, of course, they can go home and practice with all their turtle gear on. But the true reality is, if we're grabbing a rifle, it's probably a 50-yard in engagement. Now, if I was in Arizona, it's probably going to be longer because you can see a lot farther. But it's either going to be in an urban setting, it's going to be in a tree line, 50 yards, defending house and home. And I ain't going to have time to put all that gear on. I got nods. I love my nods.
I tell him,
I'm not
I
dropping
tell,
them
I
on.
tell, I tell him that all the
We
time.
just recently had this conversation, maybe 3 weeks ago about that, talking
And
about
then
knives
you know
and
when we
stuff,
go
yeah.
out and we see people, and don't take this like when we see people burying, I'll be just shaking my head, and I know you know this, but you haven't been like with them and going down that training, and I shake my head like these dudes wouldn't survive MTFI class, like just because the certain things they do is just my discipline and training, and just like woo wow, and we definitely try to help and educate and say okay you need to do this a little bit better, you know everything you do. Really, you need to really watch your finger discipline. You know, just get that down packed, and then you can go take these classes. But you see a lot of guys that want to jump into the sizzle. You know, they want to take the handgun twos and get the advance and run around with their plate carriers and the full
It looks
gear.
cool.
It look cool. I said, listen, man, I know a guy that run a rifle and a mag in his back pocket, and then rock.
Oh my God, the flannel warrior.
Front warrior. That's how when he go to Axe, that's how he is.
Yeah,
He's a magnet.
owns.
I was about to say when you said that, I'm like, he sound like my man to be an
Rock,
ex
Rock,
officer.
Rock runs Trek. He's appendix Glock and a mag in his back pocket and a Daniel, and that's it.
And let's talk about guys like Rock and Skyler, who is a Grand Master now and one of our more recent alumni, black card recipient, a full tour. Guys like Rock. I can't attest to what Rock's shooting skill was when I first met him as a student, but I've never been more proud to be a coach because he's been better coming to MDFI. And I can only hope that I had a slim part of that. And then to watch his performance, and there are so many alumni that if you're like, hey, Trek, here's the stage, you're going up against Rock. I'm like, damn it. Because I know his capability. I've helped him in some way understand what he couldn't see, and now he is far better. And to have a student be able to outshoot me and shoot circles around me, most people would say, isn't that humiliating? No, it's the most proud thing that I could possibly have, because just like handing the reins over to my guys, they're better shooters than I am. I've been working on making them better educators, and now that they're better educators, my God, they're unstoppable. And the guys that they create and build that will replace them when they hand it down, I mean, that's the constant educator, right? And but yeah, to get back to your topic, a lot of people try to solve things with hardware, but they don't have the software. If you're not 4 rules compliant, and that's that whole not tactical, you got to be 4 rules compliant every time you're handling a gun, every time you're around a gun. If you wear the coolest kit, but you keep muzzling your friend, and I just had some people up to our shoot house. They wanted to do some training, and I got to observe. And when they were going through the door, they're all kitted up, and they do a lot of training. But I pulled them aside after their first run. They were all 4 dudes going through this really tight hallway. And I said, is there a reason you guys are running your muzzles across each other's back trying to get through that door? And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, guys, you're wearing level 4 armor. You could easily still mess somebody up. Let's go muzzle high or muzzle low. And I worked them through it. They just didn't see what they were doing. Well, we got to have people that see that stuff before they worry about the kit. Once you have it, and it's a great example, Glock. You will never have, unless you mess with it. I don't see Glocks fail. If it's right out of the box, it's only when people start putting aftermarket stuff on Glocks. But a Glock is a Glock. It ain't a staccato. Right. A lot of guys right now, it's the new hotness, nods and staccatos. A lot of guys with no training are taking, you know what? That Glock with that 10-pound trigger, I'm going to have a 2-pound staccato, single action. Oh, good Lord, no, because you have no skills with the trigger fingers, and that's a bad day waiting to happen. But then you take a guy like Tim Nelson, Brandon Miedema, the 2 of the 3 owners of MDFI, who can shoot like a whiz with a Glock, and you give them a staccato, and you're like, oh, dear Lord. And they are just knocking out 110Xs at 25 yards because now the hardware is backing up the software that they have honed over years and years. And so that's what MDFI is all about. And what I love from the lower level is, you suck, it's not the gun. We got a couple Glocks, a couple Smith & Wessons, a Hellcat, some Rugers, High Point, whatever it is. And then as the classes get more quote-unquote advanced, and there's no such thing as advanced class, you start noticing it's all Glocks, staccatos, M&Ps, and oh, by the way, 99% of red dots. You can watch the students make progression, realizing I'm going to have to spend either a little bit more money on some quality gear instead of a lot more gear, and stuff that's tried, trusted, even though it's not the coolest looking stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's really neat to watch that stuff, but having that mindset or that ethos with the company, we've cut out a lot of the baloney, and we do have people that come through cover and movement and they wear full kit. A lot of times it's Leos because that's how they go to work.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I have the dude that's right next to the SWAT cop, well, what are you? I'm a father. I'm out here in my flannel shirt rolling around in the mud with my AR-15 or my Rock ran the shotgun in cover movement. Oof, full power all day long. Why? Because Rock is picturing it in the middle of the night. I grab this gauge. I am wearing either, my underwear at night, or I'm wearing blue jeans and a t-shirt, and I've got what's on the gun and my handgun, and I'm going to work this problem because the artificial things that we see, and I had this happen in Texas for a cover and movement class, is I looked at the students and I noticed a guy wearing a Glock 34 and a race rig. And then he had like 15 magazines on his left side. And I said, hey, I'm not trying to dog you, but he's like, well, I figured this is going to be easier. I said, well, what do you carry? He goes, shield with a pocket mag. I said, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but run your carry gun in the class with the way that you run your spare mag, and then put a couple spare mags just to feed your pocket from your back pocket. And at the end of the day, he goes, I never thought that when I'm laying on my right side and my pants get tight, I can't get my spare mag. So he changed a couple things. And at the end of the day, he's covered in snot and mud and probably a couple scratches. And he goes, Trek, thank you so much for making me make the harder choice, because I learned so much more about my carry gun versus taking the easy route. And I would have left here feeling overly confident with the wrong gun. Most dangerous things for kids is the first couple of years of driving after they've been told you're good. The government says you're good and you think you're good. That's exactly it. I mean, if you're not 4 rules compliant, and I mean that is in your self-control,
Right.
if you try to run with a race gun in your hand with a finger in a 1911 with a grip, a grip safety and the safety off, and you're not working that safety and finger off the trigger, I always attribute it's the captain of the Titanic waking up 5 minutes early, seeing the iceberg, spinning the wheel, and going, we made it, and go, turn around, let's do it again.
Right.
And a lot of people do that every day. They don't understand that they're putting a gun on, and they're only increasing the likelihood of a bad thing happening or them going to prison. Yeah. Either because they don't have good gun handling skills, or they don't have good use of force skills. And that's a bad combination. If you're a road rager and you're carrying a gun, that gun you put on in the morning is only upping your chance to never hug your loved ones again, either because you die in the street or you go to prison. And it's the same thing with gun handling. If I can't handle a gun and shoot through the wall and hit a loved one or a neighbor, that's a bad day just waiting to happen.